Here we are between two sprints. I'm your host, Matt Thomas, joined by my fearless co-host, Adam Rolfe, aka Speed Farm, and our guest of honor today, Devan McConnell, the high performance director for the Utah Mammoth, has spent a bunch of time around the NHL with the New Jersey Devils, the Arizona Coyotes, RIP, but everything from high performance, S&C, sports science, RTP, and reconditioning, and a 1080 power user for I don't even know kind of how long, from the sprint, the cable, currently the cable, the synchro, the quantum, and everything in between. So thank you very much for joining. How are you doing today? And anything about your background that I missed that you want to toss in there?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. Happy to jump on with you guys. Always good to catch up and talk shop. That's background. I guess, started out in the collegiate setting as a strength and conditioning coach, sort of morphed into a sports scientist, S&C coach kind of along the way. I worked at Stanford University very early on, and then spent a long time at UMass Lowell, which is outside Boston, working primarily with ice hockey. Hockey background, so I played college hockey, grew up playing hockey. After a decade or so at Lowell, had the opportunity to leave for the NHL, where I started out with the New Jersey Devils, and that's where I first started working with 1080 equipment. We had just our director Chris Stackpole at the time had come from the NBA, and he had some. I believe he had a synchro wherever he was, and so when he hired me, came in and one of the first kind of pieces of equipment that we added to our arsenal was a quantum, a single quantum. So that's kind of where I started sort of toying with 1080. We added a sprint at that time. Transitioned, left New Jersey, transitioned to Arizona Coyotes. Went from sort of my role in New Jersey was director of performance science and reconditioning. So performance science, and then sort of hands-on with our long-term RTP cases. Moved to Arizona, where I took on the role as high performance director, which was a brand new role there. A lot of that was bringing in sports science as a methodology and various tools and technologies into our program and building the system out, which again, I leaned heavily on 1080. So we brought in right off the bat, I needed to have a sprint. I needed to have a quantum at the time. Arizona transitioned to Utah. So technically different organizations, but sort of the same. So we were moved to Utah. Everybody came with us. So the whole group, the whole staff, the whole team, but came into a really unique situation here in Utah with just, without question, the best owner in professional sports, in my opinion. And anything that we have wanted to do, needed to do, he's provided the resources and the backing. And so now, we've built a brand new performance facility, 8,000 square foot gym, 100,000 square foot total facility. And again, we continue to lean heavily on 1080 equipment and expertise. So we have multiple sprints, we have multiple cable units, and it's a big piece of kind of what we do and how we train and program.
Fantastic. So I'd love to dive kind of into the pre or the beginning of that journey, kind of with the Devils, getting your hands on 1080 stuff for the first time. I know that you've done a webinar for us in the past. I really enjoyed that one way back when I was still coaching, because you're coming up on 7 years now of experience with the 1080 tech. So what was that kind of first experience like, being able to create relatively new stimuli, right? If people are just used to dumbbells and sleds and bars and plates and stuff, but also being able to, like you said, that sports science methodology, where it's not just collecting data, but it's this kind of feed forward loop of you do something, how to go, iterate, collect data, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll go through the Devils and then how that turned into maybe a little bit more of the kind of career development side and talking about it in different kind of interviews and kind of stuff like that, beyond just the X's and O's kind of helping you out as a coach. So there's a lot of stuff, but take it away. And if you need any clarifying questions, let me know.
Yeah, no, I'll need help with that down the road, but I'll start out with New Jersey and kind of, my introduction to 1080 equipment. Again, I kind of got on the floor there, and right off the bat, we added, installed a quantum, and brought a sprint on board. And so I'll start with kind of the sprint, because I've always been a very speed and sprint based coach from a philosophical perspective. For ice hockey, acceleration is such a huge component. And I think there's a lot of value in even top speed mechanics, even though we don't get into top speed a lot in ice hockey, but there's still a ton of really important value there. So I had always, previous to having this type of equipment, had still focused on, as a KPI, like acceleration and speed development. So a major lens through which I programmed was trying to improve players' speed. So we were always, from a sprinting perspective, I had always used timing gates, and that was a big piece of what we did, like on and off ice sprinting, and other technologies, whether it be very basic jump mats or transitioning into force plates and things. The lens was always through which trying to improve player speed. So what we were doing in the gym, was very much around that goal. So when I got into New Jersey and sort of was able to bring that philosophy, and the staff that was there already in place certainly had a very similar philosophy, but now we're adding this technology that not only can function in a simplistic manner as a resisted sprinting tool, but we can now fine tune to a degree that I'd never been able to before, using timing gates and sleds and things like that. So a lot of the concepts that I had that were very broad-based, assumptions, we're now able to assess on a very particular scale, right? So we could set very specific loading parameters with different players, and we could assess much more intricately than we had in the past. So being able to bring the 1080 Sprint on board at that time just really allowed me to take what was sort of more theoretical and more, again, sort of broad-based assumptions to training. Is this training making this player faster? Yeah, I think so. Not exactly sure why or how. To now, is this training making this player faster? Yes, it is. This is exactly why. Or no, it's not. And this is exactly why. And here's what we can do to manipulate those things. So that was sort of the initial experience with the Sprint. With the Quantum, that was much more of a unique tool for me, because I had never had any experience with isokinetic resistance. So, and that's primarily what I used the Quantum for. Whatever exercise we were programming or utilizing, a lot of what we were doing was isokinetic in nature. And I immediately saw massive potential with that type of resistance, because it was such a novel stimulus to any of our athletes. Like, there's just, at least in the hockey space at that time, again, without really that tool, dumbbells and barbells and these things are all very important and still piece of the puzzle, a big piece of the puzzle, but you just can't replicate that. So now introducing isokinetic resistance, we saw immediate sort of transfer to strength and power gains, and even because I was in this reconditioning role where, yes, I worked with the whole team, but we had a head strength coach. His primary responsibility was that. Mine was much more assist that day to day, but whenever somebody was injured, that was my person. So I'm one-on-one quite often with those athletes. And if it was a long-term rehab, we had a lot of time to kind of dive into the weeds and come up with some, unique ideas and unique exercises and things outside the box a little bit. And so the Quantum at the time really became a tool for experimentation and for a lot of coming up with a lot of creative solutions to issues that we were having, that just, there was no other way to do that. And it was such a unique stimulus. It was quite a learning curve for me at the time, in a short amount of time, but I immediately saw the benefit and knew that this was going to be, an important piece of our structure wherever I was going to be moving forward.
You've been playing with this quite a while now, isokinetics, and 7 years is quite a while in the high performance space now. When you went to get new equipment this last year, isokinetics specifically, what have you done different? Like, why was that something, yes, you discovered back in the day in New Jersey, like, this is really good, but from a hockey standpoint, what are you doing now that's so different than that reconditioning with your setup in Utah?
I don't know that it's fundamentally much different. I think from a principles perspective, I think we are still doing a lot of the same stuff. I don't think that changes. What I think has changed, and again, because we've been blessed with this facility and the resources that we have, we were able to go out and get 4 cables. 4 cable units to install into our facility. And so, one of the challenges in the team setting is around logistics, right? And so in the past, I had only ever had one quantum, and it was hugely beneficial. But when you've got 23 athletes in the gym trying to get ready for practice or training, afterwards or whatever it may be, if you've got one piece of equipment, you can't program for everybody to utilize that. So it was a lot harder, again, on a one-on-one basis, on a special case basis, on a rehab basis, absolutely use it all the time. On a team basis, just hard to fit that in, right? Well, now we have the resources and the space to have 4 cables. So now we're able to take those principles and those concepts and see that, we know the benefit of isokinetic training alongside everything else that we're doing, but now we can program it for everybody. So now we're doing things almost every single day, utilizing that equipment, utilizing our sprints. We do, either linear based sprinting or change of direction type work as our part of our pre-practice routine almost every single day. We use the cables for a variety of different exercises, but again, using those, creatively in different patterns, different movements. Hockey's has a very frontal plane and transverse plane component to the skating stride that's different from a lot of other sports. And we can utilize the cables to a large extent to train strength and power at different loads, different resistances, different types of resistance in that frontal plane and transverse plane that you just can't do really well without that type of equipment, or it's much more challenging. And we've even started to experiment with taking some of our cables and attaching those to our racks and utilizing isokinetic resistance with some of our more traditional exercise, with bench press, with rear foot elevated split squat. And that's been sort of a very new sort of diversion to what we're doing. And we're just sort of putting our toes into that water. But right off the bat, that's been really well received and super beneficial. So we've been able to do a lot of cool things with it lately.
Yeah, I like how you laid that out, where you were a speed guy. You had all of these little experiments and things that you believed in with the timing lasers and the jump mats, but it now with quote motorized resistance, if that's what we want to call it, you can take that to the next level, right? To do science, right? You have your hypothesis, aka program, data, figure out what it meant, and iterate. But I guess I'll go back to my original question, the back half. So don't worry, I remember, I'm the host. When it comes time to interview at a new club, or now that you're in a director role and it's budgeting and it's getting your equipment and kind of things like that, right? Putting in for 4 cables, how do you explain or describe this tech for someone who doesn't do what we do on a daily basis? Or if you were interviewing and they said, okay, cool, like we get that you like this stuff, but we don't have it. So what? So a little bit more kind of the businessy side, if that's what we want to call it. Whether it was initially getting in with the Coyotes or now your director role kind of with the Mammoth.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm, I guess for lack of a better term, pitching, this type of equipment, I'm trying to put this into the budget, and I have to make a case to, management, ownership. This is why it's important, and we need to spend the money on this type of equipment. I think it's really sort of an education process, I guess, explaining. I mean, quite frankly, again, speaking to people that don't do what we do, explaining the difference, in their terminology between isokinetic and, concentric strength and eccentric load and what those things are. And then explaining like this ability to train with isokinetics is really potentially valuable to our athletes. And this is why. And we can't really get that any other way. I think it's always important to relate things back to reducing the incidence of injury. I won't say injury prevention, but in professional sports, listen, if I hurt an athlete in the gym, like I'm gone, like I'm fired. There's no room for that. You can't have that happen. And ultimately, the most important thing, like, yes, I want to see our athletes get faster. I want to see them get stronger, et cetera, et cetera. The hands down, the most important thing is that they stay on the ice and play hockey. like without question. Whether a guy, if his vertical jump goes down through the season, like I don't like that. I need to look at why that's happening. But if his vertical jump goes down and he plays 82 games, he plays 82 games. Like that's number one. So that being said, being able to explain how this technology and how these different, how the different settings and the different things that we can do with this, not only feed into our injury reduction philosophy in our training program, but also how this, the isokinetic resistance, for example, in a split squat, like how we can help our athletes safely load and create high levels of force with very, very little potential downside, right? We can deload the eccentric load. There can be, essentially no compressive load on a barbell, et cetera. But we can push really hard, and explaining to management, what does that mean? Like, I can say that. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, that means that this athlete can create way higher levels of force. Force underpins power. Power underpins speed. We want to play a really fast game. Guys have to be really strong. This is a way that we can get really strong without beating guys up, without guys getting sore. So it's trying to find those avenues in the conversation, understanding, who you're talking to, what lens they have, what's important to them, and then being able to speak their language is really what I find to be really important.
Yeah, I think that common language of, I think we can all agree we need our athletes first staying healthy, and then second performing at a high level, and then kind of here's the why. So I think that common win, common goal is huge for that, for sure. So we went kind of past, kind of present, and now kind of future. So the 1080 technology is an experience good, where you get better at it the more you use it, right? Kind of like an air fryer. That's what I heard on a podcast. I think it makes total sense to me. So now that you're 7 years in, not only just a better practitioner yourself, but also in the variety of kind of roles, being able to create strength stimuli, get on the ice, all this kind of stuff. What are you most interested in kind of moving forwards in general, finding new ways, new experiments to use this tech, or specifically for your hockey players? Basically, if you had unlimited time and unlimited athletes, or maybe just limited athletes, just 3, not a whole group, kind of what do you think is the future of hockey development, whether it's on ice, off ice, or anything in between?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it's a continuation of what we've been doing. We in more in the off season than in season, but we utilize the sprints on the ice a lot for speed development. I think we're going to continue to do that. One thing that we haven't delved into too much in the past has been change of direction with the 1080, especially on the ice. We've done some of that off the ice. We haven't done a lot of that on the ice. So I think that's an area that we're going to probably start to experiment more with and look more at this off season as far as utilizing the sprints in that way. I think now that we have, again, the facility that we have, like logistics dictate a lot of what you can do. Now that we have the facility we have in the space and the resources, I think utilizing the cables in some of our, like I talked about earlier, some of our more, traditional type exercises, rack-based exercises, but being able to utilize the isokinetic resistance to that. I think we're really excited to see where that goes, in our, our high strength, high force focused part of our off season program, being able to do, again, very simple, but bench press with isokinetic resistance. Rear foot elevated split squat is a primary exercise for us from a strength development standpoint. Being able to utilize that and really see what kind of changes we can have with our athletes that are here in house. I think those are the things looking forward over the next 12 to 18 months that our staff is really excited about, kind of experimenting with and just seeing kind of where that goes, and then what comes out of that. Again, on any single day, one of our guys comes up with some unique way to utilize the tools, whether it be in a rehab setting or a warm-up setting, or if it's a primary lift, whatever it might be. But as our group I've been utilizing technology for 7 or 8 years. Our group is now really getting to utilize it for the first time. Again, we've had Sprint, so that we're very well versed there, but the cables are new for us and things like that. So now as our staff really starts to have time to kind of experiment on their own, I'm really excited to see where they end up taking this, because I think again, it just opens up a world of possibilities for us.
You mentioned earlier when we were off camera, you got to go to your son's hockey tournament. And so I'm just interested with your experience now at the pro level, but also being a dad and seeing what's happening at the youth hockey level. Where does like some of the athletes that are getting up to the pro level, are there gaps that they could be doing different from a training standpoint before they get to you? Like, are you thinking about this different? Are you looking at like your son's development in that middle age range and then the collegiate range? Like, do you have any advice for the coaches out there that are struggling, like, to do the right thing, go best by their kids in that space?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my son's 12, so we're just getting into learning how to train and that kind of thing. But I do think that there's a big gap. I mean, when I worked in college hockey, it was the players who had a strong S&C background leading into college hockey had such an advantage. And I'm just talking about traditional training, not even anything, as unique as we're talking about. I think it was such a major advantage for those players to come in as freshmen and have, wherever they may have come from, having spent a couple of years in a well-structured S&C program. I think if you're training those, high school age type athletes entering in the college setting, and you have access to this technology and these types of tools, I think it doesn't have to be complicated, but it can be such a unique differentiator for these athletes to be able to learn how to sprint with resistance. Like one of the biggest benefits to utilizing the sprint just in linear speed development stuff, especially early on, is it allows you as a coach and allows the athlete to learn how to get into the right postures and positions, learn how to apply force appropriately and in the right directions. You just can't quite do any other way, or certainly not as smoothly, not as well. So, if you're a facility and you have high school athletes and you're able to have a 1080 sprint, like hugely beneficial in teaching how to move properly, linear based sprinting, change of direction, acceleration work, like all of these things. And not even talking about the data side of it, where you can really start to hone in on things, but just utilizing the motorized resistance to help as a teaching tool, I think is so beneficial. So any way that you can start to implement these concepts into training at that age, I think is putting these athletes head and shoulders above their peer group.
So when you get to become the official S&C coach of your son at the NHL level, we'll have to get you back on, and then we can talk about that journey for sure.
Nice, yeah.
So that is all we have time for today, but I want to roll out the gold carpet, right, Adam? The gold carpet for you to shamelessly plug, emphasis on shameless, anything you got going on, and where people can get more of Coach McConnell.
I wish I had something to sell. I don't have anything. I wrote a book a long time ago. I don't even know if you can get it anymore. It was called Intent, so you can look that up somewhere. But you can get a hold of me. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Instagram's probably more of a pictures of my kids and food, I guess. But you can certainly DM me. LinkedIn's probably from a professional standpoint where I spend the most time. I'm with my role and the progression of my career, I'm more and more in the weeds of sort of leadership and management. I'm less sort of, that's kind of my job here is to lead and oversee our broader group. It's less to be, in the weeds every day, as much on the floor. So I do sort of talk about that stuff a lot, but I'm always interested in talking shop. So if anybody has comments, questions, whatever, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, and happy to chat.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, Adam and Devin, and I'm looking forward to the next one.